Hello and good morning. My name's Don Arleth and you're watching World News coming to you live to Warsaw. German police have linked the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipeline to the former commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Valerii Zaluzhnyi, according to the Wall Street Journal. Zaluzhnyi currently serves as Ukraine's ambassador to the United Kingdom. The outlet reported that the Germans claim to have, quote, a clear picture that the act was conducted by an elite Ukrainian military unit under the supervision of Kyiv's ex-military chief. Germany has been looking into the case for nearly 3 years after 3 of the 4 gas pipelines connecting Russia and Germany were damaged and rendered inoperable in September of 2022, several months after the outbreak of the Russian full-scale invasion of Ukraine. 2 suspects in the sabotage have been apprehended, with one awaiting next month's extradition ruling in Italy, while the other was acquitted of all charges by a Polish court last month. Before the verdict, Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk said extradition of the suspect wouldn't be in his country's interest. Ukraine has suspended Justice Minister Herman Halushchenko amid a corruption probe into the energy sector, following the dismantling of a $100 million laundering scheme involving Energoatom executives and former officials. So far, 5 people have been detained and 7 charged, including ex-minister Oleksiy Chernyshov and businessman Timur Mindich, a former associate of President Zelensky. Ukraine's government has suspended Justice Minister Herman Halushchenko as part of the ongoing investigation into corruption in the energy sector. This comes after the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine announced Tuesday that it had dismantled a high-level criminal network accused of exploiting the country's energy sector. The group reportedly included former energy officials and executives at the state nuclear power company Energoatom and managed to launder around $100 million. 5 people have been detained and 7 have been charged so far. Former Minister of National Unity Oleksiy Chernyshov is among those accused, alongside Timur Mindich, a businessman and former associate of President Zelensky. Power outages in Kyiv highlight both Russian attacks on energy infrastructure and Ukraine's failure to fortify critical sites, partly due to corruption within Energoatom. Citizens are demanding President Zelensky act decisively by removing officials implicated in graft and allowing anti-corruption bodies to proceed without interference. That's according to Daria Kalenyuk, co-founder of the International Center for Ukrainian Victory.
I'm now in Kyiv and I don't have electricity. Electricity cuts are happening every day. And basically, one of the reasons, a clear reason, is that Russians are attacking our critical energy infrastructure. But another reason is that Ukrainian critical energy infrastructure was not prepared properly for these attacks. The defensive construction sites were not built on time. And one of the reasons is that there was this organized crime group working and influencing the critical energy infrastructure company Energoatom and embezzling the funds. Mm-hmm. So, and people of Ukraine are watching all of that. They are very angry. They expect President Zelensky to react straightforwardly. It's not enough to have 30 seconds message to the people of Ukraine, which he recorded 2 days ago, that he said we are waiting for the court verdicts. We can wait for the court verdicts for years. But now it is important for Zelensky to basically avoid covering up his inner circle and let anti-corruption bodies to complete their jobs. And those who are suspect in large-scale graft and corruption must be dismissed immediately from the important top governmental positions.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said on social media that troops have downed over 150 Russian drones since early November. He added that Ukraine will keep advancing anti-drone technology as long as Russian strikes persist.
Almost every night, our defenders of the sky are working to repel Russian attacks. Together with electronic warfare units, army aviation and mobile fire groups, the results of interceptor drones are already significantly increasing, more than 150 since the beginning of the month already, including shootdowns tonight, and there will be more. We will definitely continue to develop interceptor drone technology and train crews. The Ministry of Defense is contracting all available production capacity for interceptors. We are working on closer cooperation with partners. Joint production and financing will let us scale this up faster. Thank you to everyone advancing this effort.
On Tuesday, a court in Russia's St. Petersburg sent an 18-year-old street musician who performed anti-war songs to jail for a third time. All public criticism of Russia's war in Ukraine, President Vladimir Putin, and the army has been outlawed in the country under sweeping censorship laws, largely compared to those of the Soviet Union.
Diana Longinova was arrested last month after staging pop-up street performances, singing songs by exiled Russian artist Monetochka and Noise MC in St. Petersburg. She has already served 2 13-day sentences and was arrested again and charged with new offenses after each release. In the latest case, she was found guilty of organizing a mass gathering of people and sentenced to another 13 days in prison. According to human rights lawyers, the artist is now caught up in what they call a jail carousel, a practice in which prosecutors put forth a string of minor charges against defendants to keep them in constant custody.
On Tuesday night, top diplomats from the G7 arrived in Ontario, Canada for a 2-day meeting. Discussions are expected to focus on peace efforts in Ukraine and Gaza, maritime security, supply chain resilience, and critical minerals trade.
Apart from the G7 foreign ministers, officials from Ukraine, Australia, Brazil, India, Saudi Arabia, Mexico and South Korea have also been invited to Canada. The main point on the summit's agenda is a meeting with Ukraine's chief diplomat Andriy Sybiha. The United Kingdom has already said it will send $17 million to help stabilize Ukraine's energy sector as winter quickly approaches and Russia continues to attack its infrastructure. The funds will be put towards repairs to power, heating and water supplies, as well as humanitarian support for the Ukrainian people. The summit follows last month's decision to put a planned summit between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump on hold after Moscow rejected an immediate ceasefire in Ukraine.
The government in London will launch a review of the BBC before the end of the year, the British Culture Minister announced in Parliament. The probe aims to ensure the broadcaster's independence and accountability following the Director General Atif Davies' resignation over a scandal concerning edited footage of Donald Trump's January 6, 2021 speech.
We will imminently begin the Charter Review, which will set the terms of the BBC for the next decade, and through it we will collectively write the next chapter of the BBC story. Together we will ensure the BBC is sustainably funded, commands the public's trust, and continues to drive growth, good jobs, skills and creativity across every region and nation of the UK. In an era in which trust is fraying and truth is contested across our nation, it will ensure the BBC remains fiercely independent and is genuinely accountable to the public it serves.
On Fox News' The Ingram Angle, U.S. President Donald Trump said he plans to sue the BBC, accusing it of a misleading edit of his January 6, 2021 speech. The documentary allegedly spliced remarks made nearly an hour apart, making it appear as if he urged his supporters to storm the Capitol.
Are you going ahead and suing the BBC?
Well, I guess I have to. You know, why not? Because they defrauded the public, and they've admitted it, and their top echelon.
Director General and the CEO
This
both
is
resigned.
within one of our great allies. You know, this is supposedly our great ally, BBC. The government has a chunk of that one, I guess, but that's a pretty sad event. They actually changed my January 6th speech, which was a beautiful speech, which was a very calming speech, and they made it sound radical.
The jailed mayor of Istanbul, Ekrem İmamoğlu, could face more than 2,000 years in prison after a prosecutor indicted him on charges of allegedly leading a large corruption network. that cost the state nearly $4 billion.
Imamoglu, who is the main rival to President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, has also been accused of, quote, bribery, establishing an organization for committing crimes of forgery, rigging public bids and disseminating disinformation. His own party and the main opposition group, the Republican People's Party, dismissed the allegations as nonsense and suggested they were politically motivated. Alongside Imamoglu, more than 400 mayors, municipal administrators, businesspeople and opposition politicians have also been named as suspects in the indictment. Considered a frontrunner in the 2028 presidential election, Imamoglu first won the Istanbul mayoral election in 2019 and was re-elected in 2024. Turkey saw a wave of nationwide protests in March after he was arrested pending trial on suspicion of corruption. He has been in custody ever since.
Thousands of people took to the streets of Belgrade on Tuesday to protest the redevelopment of a former army headquarters into a luxury complex linked to U.S. President Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The site was bombed and damaged in 1999 by NATO. It was leased to Kushner's investment firm, but is seen by many Serbs as a historic landmark.
I don't expect much, believe me. Even though we're constantly on the streets, I really don't expect much, at least until the government's dream comes true, which is Expo 2027.
There's no end to the humiliation. This is something that undermines national identity and disrupts the continuation of our culture and traditions. I think it's extremely humiliating, and we wonder where the limit is, and whether there is an end to it. I'm telling my friends right now that I was in this building. It's very emotional. My personal connection to this building is that I served in the army there for a few months. But I see this more generally as part of our cultural heritage. We simply can't give that away.
On Tuesday evening, dozens rallied outside the parliament in Vienna against an event called the Dinghofer Symposium. The gathering, organized by Austria's far-right parliamentary speaker Walter Rosenkranz, honored former Austrian vice-chancellor and Nazi party member Franz Dinghofer.
Protesters in the Austrian capital held placards reading "No place for anti-Semitism" and "Shame." At the rally organized by the Union of Jewish Students of Austria, its co-president Leah Gutmann said that the demonstrators were holding a counter-symposium against what she called historical amnesia. The Dinghofer Symposium drew criticism from Austria's Jewish community, as well as from major political parties, including the ruling coalition. Additionally, over a dozen historians said that the event made the parliament a place of remembrance for a declared anti-Semite.
During a meeting in Paris on Tuesday, French President Emmanuel Macron and Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas announced the formation of a joint committee to advance Palestinian statehood. Macron also pledged French support in drafting a future Palestinian constitution.
We have today taken the joint decision to establish a joint committee for the consolidation of the State of Palestine. This committee will be responsible for working on all legal, constitutional, institutional and organizational aspects of the effort. It will contribute to the new constitution, a draft of which President Abbas has presented to me, and will aim to finalize all the conditions for a State of Palestine.
Catherine Connolly has been sworn in as Ireland's 10th president. Connolly was elected in a landslide vote at the end of October, defeating her opponent from the centre-right Fine Gael party, Heather Humphreys. Herself firmly on the left, Connolly told the crowd gathered for her inauguration that she believed her election demonstrated Ireland wants a new political direction, divergent from the country's centre-right government. She also remarked on Irish history, adding that the country has experienced a horrific famine and war, and thus the normalization of war and genocide has never been and will never be acceptable. During her campaign, Connolly frequently expressed harsh criticism of Israel, accusing it of committing genocide in Gaza and calling it a terrorist state. Although the presidency is a largely ceremonial post, the outgoing president, Michael D. Higgins, stretched the constraints and turned it into a platform for domestic and international issues. a practice Connolly is expected to continue. And that concludes this edition of World News. Thanks for joining us, and stay with us for more here on TVP World.